Too Good Sports with Hamo and Greggy.
All right, welcome to Too Good Sports. Thanks for joining us again. This is the 8th episode, Greggy.
It is. We've done well.
Big show ahead.
Very big show ahead. Special guest star tonight, I think, Hamo, if I do say myself.
Absolutely, the guru, Eric Grothe.
Eric Grothe, yeah.
Very fortunate to have him tonight, so it's a big show. Let's get into it right away.
Righto, let's get into it, mate.
All right, our next segment around the sporting world in 90 seconds. At Bells Beach on the weekend, Greggy, it was a finals day to remember. I watched this with a lot of interest. I'd love to go down there and watch it one day. It's on my bucket list. But the final of the Rip Curl Pro, John Florence, the Hawaiian John Florence, up against Toledo from Brazil. He narrowly beaten Australians Ryan Callanan. I watched that one with interest. I thought he snuck over the line. It was classic Bells conditions. And in the women's competition, it was Courtney, I hope I pronounced this right, Courtney Kologe versus Malaya Manuel Hawaii. I think it's the best tournament apart from or best comp outside of Pipeline. Did you watch this?
I watched a bit of it probably a week ago, because obviously through the heats and all that. I watched a few of the heats. They head over to Margaret River next normally, don't they? Over to Margaret River. But
Sharks are good there.
The Sharks are good there. They're good somewhere, non-rugby league. But, there was Bells is the classic. I agree with you on that. And JJ won again. Well done to JJ.
How good would that be to go down the Great Ocean Road and watch that?
It'd be fantastic. You watch that. You then probably fly back to Melbourne if you could and watch the Storm play somebody just to finish off the weekend.
Hopefully beat the Dragons. Make a really good weekend of it. Greggy, the gap between the top teams and the bottom teams in the AFL starting to become a bit more prominent.
Yeah, it is. When you say the top teams, the top 3 or 4 seem to sort of starting to get the feel that the Geelongs are starting to head that direction. They gave West Coast a good flogging. Geelong and Collingwood and Richmond, they're the big 3 if you ask me.
Your mob narrowly beaten?
By Hawthorn, yeah. The mighty Navy Blues got beaten by Hawthorn 93-88 if I remember the score correctly, which unfortunately I do.
In the rugby, quickly, a top of the table conference clash between the Rebels and the Waratahs. You would have watched that?
No, I didn't. Sorry, I didn't watch that. I did watch on Sunday morning. I watched the full game of the Brumbies versus the Jaguars or the Jaguars, or however they pronounce the Argentinian team. And that was a great game. Very good game. The Australian Conference is very, very close at the moment.
All right. Now, last week we brought you the important sport of shin kicking. Your man,
Seamus O'Connell.
Obviously,
forgetting.
Seamus actually is a follower now of Too Good Sports, so thank you, Seamus. But this week we're exploring the fascinating or the very interesting sport of world hot dog eating.
So what happened with cheese one? Is that next week?
Cheese is coming up with the wife carrying.
Yeah.
So we're going to go for a trip across the Atlantic to New York, and that's where they hold the World Championships in New York.
I have watched this.
You've watched it a bit?
I've watched it, yeah.
What do you like on hot dogs?
No. One hot dog, a bit like the count. I get to 3 and that's about it.
A couple of weeks ago I thought, I could really handle a hot dog, and I had to. I was a bit of a pig. And I thought, I'm not having a hot dog for 10 years. There's a bloke called Joey the Jaws Chestnut. He's a blokes champion. He's won a couple of world titles now. And he's knocked over 74 in 10 minutes. You do the math. You're pretty good at maths.
Yeah, well, that's 7.4 a minute and 60 seconds in a minute. So it's approximately about 8 seconds per a hot dog.
You wouldn't want to be next to the old Jaws Chestnut on a plane, would you?
No. Well done to him.
And, of course, the female champion, Miki Suda, she's won the women's belt for 5 years running.
Yeah.
She did 37.
Yeah, unstoppable. Yeah, she's very much like the old Seamus O'Connell.
Plastic sheets all around. All right, as mentioned earlier, we're really pleased to welcome our very special guest to Too Good Sports, one of the really, I guess, the greats of rugby league.
Iconic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely iconic, yeah.
4-time premiership winner, New South Wales and Australian star, Eric Grothe.
Yes.
And as I said, widely regarded today. He hasn't played for a couple of decades, but still today, even though all the training and everything else, still regarded as probably the greatest winger to play the game. All right. Again, thanks very much, Eric Grothe for joining us this evening on our show. So, Eric, how you been, mate?
Oh, really good. Thanks, guys. I think it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great, mate. A few questions, mate. What brought you to the mighty Eels in the first place back in 1979?
Ah, geez, 1979. Doesn't time go quick? It's
Who was the Prime Minister then?
I came up into the grade with Steve Ella. We were playing for East Mount Pritchard, local team where I grew up in Mount Pritchard, and we both came up together in '77. Played the semi-finals in that particular year. Sit on the bench, and they had some injuries, so we got a bit of game time. It was Terry Fernley's brother, Ron Fernley, that watched Steve Ella and myself in the local junior footy and brought us up together. So we've got Terry and Ron to thank for that.
Right. You look at the blokes today, Eric. I guess it's full-time professionalism, obviously, and blokes live in the gym and whatnot. What was your weight when you first started?
I was pretty skinny sort of a kid. I was around, playing grade, I was around 85 kilo. And then as I got a bit older, I put on a bit of beef and ended up, I played 84, sort of half a season in England, and there was a lot of fish cakes and a lot of sausage rolls over there that I partaked, and I came back at about 105 kilo, 106 kilo or something. But I was sort of nestled in around 95, generally speaking.
Yep. Mate, you were renowned, apart from being a very good footballer, you were renowned for your pace, especially off the mark, and your power. It was sort of not seen a lot of at that time. I remember I was a young kid at the time, Eric, and I was blown away, as a lot of people were. There were the Terry Fays and a few of those blokes, but you guys, I guess, started that type of wing play?
It was. There was a number of big players. It was Ziggy Niscott played.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Ziggy. Yep.
Yeah, and he was a big thing too. And Terry Fays, you said, he was a monster. We had John Rebo
that's right.
was playing second row, and then in Newtown, and he got transferred to the wing. And there was a number of big fellas there. But I remember playing against guys like Terry Fay and Johnny Rebo. They're very physical games. They let you know that they were there.
Look, you went on to become, the guru and one of the greats, I guess, of the game. 4 premierships, 5 grand finals, 8 tests, 9 origins. It's a difficult question. It's like saying who's your favourite child, but does one achievement stand out more than the other?
I'd say the 81 grand final was the first one for Parramatta that they ever won. So that was that will hold a special place in my heart all the time, and how important it was for the district and the fans and stuff. And we were very unlucky in the late 70s with the players like Jeff Gerard and Ron Hilditch and the Sidewoods brothers and stuff that were just a pubic hair away of winning the comp a couple of times. And that might have changed the situation for us, but that didn't happen. But that spurred us on to want to win it, and they sort of paved the way for us. And then Jack Gibson came to the club, and the rest is history.
Even the great Johnny Colk, he must have, he was in that that 77 side.
Yeah, Dennis Fitzgerald. Yeah, there was a number of players. They nearly won it. They had a bit of luck. Like we had some luck. If they had the luck there, they could have started it all off.
Eric, you mentioned Steve Ella, and just earlier you obviously played with some greats, not just for Parramatta, but all-time greats: Sterling, Kenny, Price, Cronin, Wynn, O'Reilly. It just keeps going on and on and on. I've missed probably a lot. It must have been a really confident team at that stage.
Yeah, well, the success sort of bred the confidence, I suppose, in the end. And it was we didn't know what to expect. We were pretty happy with the idea that Jack Gibson was going to coach us. So it was just sort of young players coming through and stuff, and it all sort of fell into place. But look, if Sterling had an off day, which was very rare, then Kenny was on. And if Brett had an off day, which was very rare, then Zip and Crow in the centres, they could do anything. And I mean, to be on the end of that, then you got O'Reilly and Wynn and all the big forwards that were doing their thing. And Pricey was, he couldn't hit him with a stick. It didn't bother him at all. It was pretty amazing to be a part of something like that. And in the end, all they had to do was really just back up.
You mentioned the coach, the great Jack Gibson. What was it like playing under him?
Pretty special. He was just the sort of guy. Look, if he walked in the room, a crowded room, people would just sort of stop and listen to what he had to say. You know, he just commanded that respect. And when we heard that he was going to coach us, you know, we thought this was going to be pretty special. We, you know, he had a reputation and so forth. So we knew someone like me that was a pretty ordinary trainer. I knew that I couldn't get away with things, so I had to beat my best. But there was no magic about Jack. He was very simple, you know. Just leading up to the grand finals and so forth. We did the same thing the week leading up to the grand finals. We did the week leading up to the opening the game in the first round. Nothing had changed, you know. We just had to do the simple basic things, which was his game plan, and just do them really well. And don't get caught up in any rubbish on the field, you know. If they want to fight, just concentrate on the footy game. And that simplicity just sort of rang a certain frequency through the team.
Sure.
Yeah. Mate, so you're talking about Terry Fay earlier. What was probably the hardest opposition player to play against? You probably also played with them for Australia and that sort of stuff, but who was your hardest opposition player?
Like I said, guys like that. I caught them at the end of his career.
The end of his career, yeah.
In his heyday, it would have been a lot harder to sort of handle. But Johnny Rebo, he was always. You just physically knew you were in a tough battle with him all the time in the state roads as well, but then as well as the club games came from Manly and so forth. And then on the other end of the spectrum is Kerry Bowstead and guys like that. You could step off 5 cent piece and go under your feet, and he was hard to contain in that sense as a different toughness. But Des Drummond was a Great Britain.
Oh yeah, the Great Britain. Yep.
His run on defence was pretty special, and you had to really sort of have good peripheral vision to sort of make sure you don't get hit by him.
There was a lot of big blokes, I guess, around that era too, especially in the back line, or in the back line. The Meningas, the Miles, yourself, the Chris Closes. It was a time, I guess, of some really big blokes playing in that position. Noel Cleal started in the centres, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Noel's brother, Les, he was a monster. He played the centres in the first instance, and then he went to the forwards. But yeah, you rattle off some big ones there. I mean, Meninga and Gene Miles. I mean, the centre partnering from Queensland and then Australia. They were massive to play with, you know, and against. Playing with them, there's so many different opportunities there. And Nick Crane, he wasn't a small fella too.
No.
Yeah.
Look, today, Eric, which players do you enjoy watching play the game today?
I'm a real fan of Cooper Cronk. I love the way that he holds himself in the field and the way that he takes his team around the park. And he's just got a great football brain, perfect for the way the game's played these days. And then Jonathan Thurston was obviously special to watch. Any winger these days is so athletic. I mean, because of the ruling of the corner post being in play now.
Yeah.
They can really dive at them and twist their bodies and do all sorts of special things.
It's changed the game, hasn't it?
So, yeah, it has a lot.
A bit like gymnasts, yeah. Your tip for the premiership at this early stage, Eric?
Look, geez, anything can happen. I mean, after 2009, the way the Parramatta sort of won about 9 or 10 games in a row, and they really didn't show anything or show any idea that sort of stuff was going to happen. But at the moment, the Roosters, Stormwise have always tough down there to play. And, at this point, I'd say Roosters and Storm with the teams to beat.
You would have obviously went down to the launching of your new beautiful stadium last week. Big win against the Tigers down there.
Yeah, geez, that was fantastic. That's a special ground, that is, and it was just like a spiritual homecoming for the guys. But it was just, it's just another level. It really is a fantastic place. All the way that the amenities are placed and everything's close by, and the whole crowd that left afterwards, that, in an orderly fashion, left there was no problems with the traffic, and there was no problems with the amount of people that were leaving at the same time. So it was just an amazing day. It was really good.
Yeah, what's it, 30,000 it holds? It looks perfect, doesn't it, for a rugby league ground? It's
Yes, yeah, it should be the model for most suburban grounds. I think it's just it was just an amazing place, and there's 30,000 people, but it sounds like 60,000.
Oh, really? Yeah.
The acoustics are unreal.
Eric, you're a member of an exclusive club, the father and son club to play Origin. You must have been, immensely proud of your son Eric Jr. when he made his debut and ended up playing a couple of games for the Blues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like most kids, he played all the junior stuff with Parramatta, the SG Ball, and Al Matthews and stuff, and so he came through the system there. Then he turned 15, 16, 17. Girls were most important, and then he just sort of faded away. And I thought, no, he's not going to play footy. This is going to be a different path for him. But then he moved out to Campbelltown way in 18, 19. He started training again. He just had sort of attitude shift, which was fantastic. And Western Suburbs found out that he was training, so they called him in for a trial. And then Parramatta found out that he was playing again, so they offered him a contract, so he signed up with them, and Brian Smith got him to the club. And from there, he played well enough to make the state of Origin, played one test for Australia, and that was just amazing. I was so proud
Absolutely.
to watch him run around and do his thing.
Look, lastly, Eric, music's always been a big part of your life. I think it was Eric Grothe and the Gurus was your band. I know it's still going?
Yeah. We actually just went away for the weekend. We do a fair bit of travelling in the country. We went to Narrabeen and Molong, which is just this side of Dubbo. And we have Billy Harrigan that sort of practices with us and does some gigs with us. He came away for the weekend with us as well, so that was a bit of fun.
He's a bit of a Kiss fan, isn't he? I heard he sings a bit of Beth.
Yeah, he's a frustrated rock star. He must, he's right into it. But, so no, it's fantastic to be able to travel. And the initial band was me and my two boys, Eric and Daniel.
Yep.
We called ourselves 3-Day Growth, and that's when they walked away and did their own thing with the band, and then I just continued on with some blokes that were my age. So it's turned out really good. It's been a lot of fun.
And on YouTube at the moment, there's quite a few thousand hits and lots of comments, really positive comments about some beautiful music you got out at the moment, and some really nice clips as well. It's really hugely popular on YouTube at the moment, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, it's just something that I've always wanted to do, and the way that you can do things on the computer now, it just makes it a little bit easier. But I've it's always had this affinity with soundtrack and moving pictures and so forth. I love going to the movies and just listening and watching the power of the music take the picture where it needs to go. And so, I've always had that love to want to do something, and the way that you can do things on the computer now with all the social media sites and stuff. So it's just it seems to work okay. So I'm really proud of the things that I put up.
Look, we're going to be sharing it on our sites this week as well, Eric.
Cool.
But look, thank you so much for joining us this evening on Too Good Sports. We've really appreciated, someone like yourself coming on and having a chat with us, Eric. It's been a fascinating career, and obviously now it's still going, but it's just veered in paths. And down the track, we look forward to having a chat with you again, Eric.
If you ever come to the coast, mate, it'd be great to have you up here and on the show.
Good on you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And it's an honour to be part of it. Thank you.
And who's going to win the Origin this year, Eric?
The Blues, definitely 3-0.
Do you say that every year? Again, all the best, Eric, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Eric.
Good on you guys. Thank you so much.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
That was Eric Grothe there on the phone. Having Eric on the phone, what a pleasure to have somebody of that stature in the game of rugby league. It's our show is, it's rugby league and cricket, but to have somebody like that on there and well interviewed from the great Haminator there. Hamo did a lot of research, and when I say did a lot of research, he did it over the last 35 years, 40 years of watching Eric Grothe, as I did myself, and what a legend to have on the show.
He was always a wonderful player to watch, and
brilliant.
A couple of chats with him before this. He just seems like a lovely guy as well. But Eric, if you're watching, thanks very much, and it's been a pleasure talking to you over the last 10 minutes.
That is as good
let's continue our rugby league our way. Let's have a look at the round that was, Greggy. It was a really interesting round. I know I say it every week. We kicked off with Anzac Day, the most important day in the calendar, in my opinion, in anything in rugby league in particular. Thursday saw the traditional rivals, the Roosters and the Dragons, at the hallowed SCG.
Yeah, it was good to be at the SCG, wasn't it? Like, we weren't there, but it was good to watch it at the SCG.
High quality game?
Yeah, high quality game. It felt a bit different being at the SCG. The right team won, unfortunately for the Dragons, but the Roosters are a better side. And right at the moment, the Roosters have 5 or 6 injuries and they're still the best side in the comp.
That's the thing. And we talked about that the other day. We had a beer on the weekend, and I said they can practically lose anyone and they can still get by. I don't think many clubs can say that.
No, they've got that spine that they're still able to move Victor Radley to hooker, and then they can do Cronk's there, and if he's not there, they'll move Keary to halfback, and they can move Mitchell to 5'8", anything. Yeah. They've got it all covered.
Yeah, and Jake Friend's, obviously, we're going to talk about that a little later, but Jake Friend's out for quite a period of time. Look, as I said, it was a pretty high-class game, but the Dragons at the end, it was a 67% completion rate. I thought you guys fell away a little bit at the end. It was blow for blow. I thought it was a really good high-class tussle against 2 heavyweights. Yeah. I think they got over the top at the end because they just don't make as many mistakes.
They don't make as many mistakes. No. Dufty scored that great try, 60-metre try. We were just on with the Guru. Guru beat him with size, and not just size, he beat him with pace and he beat him with evasion. And Dufty doesn't have the size, but he had the evasion skills of the Guru in that sort of situation. And a very good try. Unfortunately, the problem with the Dragons, I think, is that they, as you said before, they drop the ball a little bit too much. You can't do that against the Roosters. Well done, Roosters. Let's move on.
All right, the second Anzac clash, our New Zealand brethren against the Storm, 13-12 to the Storm. This was a game that I didn't expect. I think we talked about it last week. I thought 3 or 4 tries the Storm would win by at home.
I'm not a gambling man, but I like the 28. I gave 20. I just thought they'd flog them. So, yeah.
Look, I just got a couple of stats here. You called me Dexter last week, but they mashed it with a Storm in every component. In fact, they're the only ones who got the line breaks, 2 line breaks to the Warriors.
Yeah.
They really did have them. The penalties were costly to the Warriors, and a couple of them are a bit dubious. I believe that a couple of referees have been questioned tonight.
Annesley's talking to the situation as we speak. Yep.
But that's the thing, that the top teams don't have those problems, I guess. But that was a much improved effort by the Warriors, and I think they'll be thereabouts. I still think they're 8 material.
Warriors.
I think they're going to be some. It, again, depends which Warrior shows up.
We've each got our opinion. I just think that they're just so inconsistent. I can't see them making the 8. And see what happens with Nicarima this week. They get Nicarima.
Big talk that he's going there, right?
Maybe him and Green do something together. I don't know. I just think that it's too much on the fullback.
Go from a high-quality game to the Friday Bulldogs and the Cowboys. Look, a really well-deserved victory to the Doggies.
The Dogs,
firstly.
Yeah. Look, the less said, the better about the game overall. But the Doggies, they as I think we've said a few times, they won't give in for pay.
No.
They tried hard.
And that's what you talked about a couple of weeks ago. Like, there's certain guys at the moment, like that Josh Jackson, who does not stop. The Cohen Hesses
They'll pick
of the
Jackson,
game.
I reckon New South Wales will pick Jackson.
Look, if he was a Queenslander, he'd be a walk-in. Yeah. And not having to go at Cohen Hess, but if he took a bit of that Josh Jackson philosophy that just does not stop. He's got all the ability in the world, and I think a few of those current Queensland players are going to be really struggling to get there. Josh Maguire was great again. They were 7-1 in the line breaks, Canterbury against the North Queensland, and you never beat anyone with those sort of stats.
Thanks.
All right, the second game on Friday, the Panthers and the Rabbitohs. What do you think of that one?
A great game. I really enjoyed this game. I watched it. I watched every single minute of it. Sometimes you might flick channels. I didn't flick channels once. Penrith came to play. It shows you how good South are, because South probably weren't at 100%.
No.
Penrith came to play. They gave them everything. And South held on. So, great game of rugby league. If Panthers can do that, they'll win most games most weeks.
Cleary came out, both Clearys, Ivan and Nathan, they said that was their best game of the year.
Yeah,
I tend to agree. They talk about the Cowboys being a bit round off by letting Carlin Ponga go. Do you reckon they'd be a bit disappointed letting Kickout go?
Oh, definitely.
How good's he?
Definitely.
When he winds up, he's almost impossible to stop near the line. All right, let's have a look at the first Saturday game, the Tigers and the Titans. As everyone knows, we've got a bit of money on the Titans. They must have got us at a weak moment. And they can be, look, they've won 2 in a row. And I thought when they were 14-0 up, that's a game that Coach Brennan will look back on potentially and go, we could have won that if they miss out in the finals by 2 points or 4 points.
Agree. It just seems like the old heads, Robbie Farah again, the old heads for the Tigers just seem to be outperforming the Gold Coast got a few old heads too, but the Farahs, they controlled it well.
But you're right, they've got the Farahs, but they've also got those young guys like Eisenhuth, McCarley, the Keeper Park boy, Alex Twal. He just loves it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I find the hard ones, don't I? There's no Smiths, but
doesn't he love just
having
that front rower? That front rower, that Alex Twal, he is exceptional.
So
great player.
They regrouped. They played well, the Tigers, after a bit of a pasting against the Eels last week.
Yeah, they did. And that's why I think we both sort of said they're borderline 8. They still are, I think.
Mm-hmm. Look, we go to Saturday, the final game on Saturday. The Broncos needed a win against the Sharks. It was a really depleted team, but like we talked about earlier, you can only beat who's in front of you. Mm-hmm. They did get that win, the Broncos. Milford was a lot better in his 150th game. Yeah,
Milford had a good game. I didn't get as much of this game as you did. Unfortunately, I missed the whole second half. But from what I can gather, they went to sleep a little bit in the second half, 21-0 at half-time, and that was it.
Look, Greggy, it wasn't a high-class game, mate, so you didn't miss a hell of a lot in the second half. The second half in particular was pretty ordinary. Injury woes for Cronulla. Sean Johnson, I was reading today, is 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks.
So that's a big loss for them.
Huge.
When you put it on top of the other.
When you put it on Moylan.
Yeah.
Like, they're missing the forward pack, but they've got good depth in the forward pack. What they don't have is depth in the halves / we got Flanagan and all that coming through. I still think they lack that game time that these guys have got.
If the Broncos had lost that would have...
You can't have Moylan, Dugan and Johnson out.
Oh, Wade Graham, Woods, it goes on.
Yeah.
Let's go to Sunday, the first game on Sunday. I tipped the Manly side. I thought they were really good against your mob last week against the Dragons, and they did prevail against the Raiders. They look, you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, blokes want to play for Desi.
They do,
and you can see that. I watched this game, and I really, really enjoyed this game. Some of their players are unfashionable. They haven't got all the biggest names in the comp at the moment, but they're doing everything they need to do.
Greg Parker, he's fine.
Well, there's a lot of them, mate, that you just probably didn't know their names. There's a fair few debutants that started this year. The Raiders are usually...
Sheridan had a great game.
Yeah, and played in the centres for a while there as well. Yeah. Look, they're usually pretty defensively strong, or very defensively strong Raiders. They leaked 51 tackles. That was easily the most tackles they've missed this year. It was easily the most of the round. Ricky would have been filthy.
They lost a little bit when Rapana went off.
Yeah.
They lost a little bit there. Leilua, he missed his partner in crime. That's not coming away from the fact that they lost the forward battle as well.
But Manly had blokes who were busted and playing out of position too.
Sherry Evans went off.
Well, that's the big one, isn't it? And we'll talk about that a little later on. Potentially that's 6 weeks. Go to the second game on Sunday. We had a poll on our site on Facebook and Instagram, and I think it was at one stage, it was after about the 25th person, it was 100% to the Eels after that big win last week.
You and I got a vote.
And look, it was a great effort. Mitchell Pearce was outstanding, I thought.
Mitchell Pearce had a great game. I feel a little bit for the Eels supporters in this one. They should have backed it up. They really should have backed up their 51-6 game if they want to be a force, because you win 51-6 home, and then it's almost a deflation of losing then away to Newcastle.
They're the ones you've got to win.
You've got to win them, yeah.
But speaking of...
that, Newcastle were great, weren't they?
Yeah, were.
First 20 minutes.
And you mentioned last week, one of the nicest blokes who coaches, Nathan Brown, he would have slept a bit better on Sunday night. He would have been relieved.
They played for him that game. Let's hope they do it again next week for his sake.
All right. Let's have a look now at the games coming up this week, the round 8 games. I can't believe we're in round 8 already. Thursday night, this is a really interesting one. Rabbitohs and Broncos, obviously for a number of reasons, but the old Fox Bennett against the new kid on the block against Seabold. They're up for the first time. What do you think?
South. I think South proved against Penrith how good they are. They're just a shanty behind Roosters and Melbourne, in my opinion. So I'll say South by 4.
Yeah, I think you're about in the mark there. I think South by. Look, I don't think it's going to be much, but it could be a field goal or something for me. Cowboys versus Titans, a really difficult one. They were both disappointing after good wins a week before. I'm going to take Cowboys because it's at home. There's not many other reasons.
Yeah, I like your comments. I'm with you. Ditto.
All right, we go to the second game Friday. Sharks and Storm. This is traditionally a great game because they hate each other. There's a lot of niggle. Will Chambers and Paul Gallen will be in each other's throats.
Yeah.
But
I reckon Chambers can throw them too.
Well, if he's going to, he's starting with a heavyweight, isn't he? If he's picking Gallen, I think the Sharks, if they had their full contingent, you'd probably go close. But I think Storm will be too strong, especially after that scare last week.
I agree with you again. We're on a roll here. We're agreeing.
We're the agreeing brothers. Saturday first game, Raiders and Panthers. The Raiders would have been really upset with that capitulation it was at Brookvale last week. They're at home this week against the Panthers.
I think they'll be upset again.
I'm tipping the Panthers this week.
What's going on here?
We've got it. Whatever you go first, and I'll take the opposite now. The next game, Saturday, Seagulls versus Bulldogs. Greggy,
well, they're talking about the Rabbitohs and the Broncos and the two coaches. So this is Desi's return to go play against the Bulldogs. I tip a Manly. I like Manly.
I'm going to go the Bulldogs this week. I thought they were really tough against the Cowboys.
At Lionland.
Yeah. We bagged the Cowboys, but the Bulldogs didn't give them a chance. Yeah. And I think the Cherry Evans injury might impact a bit more than we think. The next game, Saturday, the Roosters and Tigers, and I can't see anyone beating the Roosters for a while, and I think it might be a couple of points. Yeah. Sunday takes us over to Mount Smart, to the Warriors against the Knights.
Which Warriors?
That's the thing, isn't it? I'm going Knights. I think there might be a bit of a buoyant Knights after a good win last week against the Eels.
Kalen again. 2 tries, Kalen, I reckon. I reckon they'll win.
He's coming into form at the right time, isn't he? All right, and the last game of the round, the Eels take on the Dragons. And again, you talk about a bit of rivalry here. I read this week, Corey Norman says he's going to give it to his old mates. I hope he doesn't. He's playing good football. He doesn't need to do that.
He doesn't need to say that. Why does he say that? I don't know. Well, we had the Guru on before. He was there when the Parramatta Stadium first opened, 36-6. Parramatta beat St. George in 1986. I'm hoping very much so that does not occur this weekend. I think the Dragons play 2.
Yeah, I'm taking the Dragons. I think the Eels will still be licking their wounds from last week. All right, so how'd you go last week with your...
I think I got about 3, so don't listen to me.
No, well, never listen to me either. I got 5 last week, but it was a couple of smokies there to make myself look good. All right, let's briefly have a quick look at some of the things that are happening this week. Obviously, Jake Friend's out for a long period of time. He's out for Origin 1 at least, probably Origin 2.
I reckon Queensland would have picked him. So that's a big shame for him. It's a big shame for Queensland, but it's a bigger shame for him at the age of 29 or 30, 29.
I think he's 29 this year, yeah. He's played for Australia.
Yeah, he's been in the shadow behind Smith for that long, and here's his chance, and that's bitter.
I think he can't imagine it, actually.
Yeah, that's bitter. Yeah.
When you look at the Queensland hookers very briefly, we've got obviously Ben Hunt is going to...
I think he's going to play hooker.
There's McCulloch, there's Granville. They've even brought up young Mahoney from Parramatta, and I think that's going to be a couple of years away at least. We had a bit of a chat in the way here.
Yep.
And especially if Daly Cherry Evans is injured, which it looks like he may miss the first Origin now. They said it's 4 to 6 weeks.
It's right on the borderline, isn't it? Yeah. They'll do everything to make sure he plays, I reckon.
Here's my question for you. If Ben Hunt is then forced to halfback because we don't have a lot of choices, what's your chances of... What chances are you giving of the great Cameron Smith coming out of retirement and doing a Freddie Fittler and saying, you know what?
That. You would have thought that was a week ago we're talking about that. It was only an hour and a half ago, correct, Hamo? I reckon he's 20% chance. He's not. So I don't think he's 2%. I reckon he's 20%. What about you?
Look, if Kevy picked the phone up and said, desperate times call for desperate measures, he is still the best hooker in the game. He's coming second at the moment.
We're going with it. We're going with it, aren't we?
I would love to see it. If there's any weird chance in the world that Cameron Smith somehow staggered across our show and is watching this,
Cameron Langer.
But you never know. Blokes have come back. Yeah, Langer and Fittler have done it in the past, and
Johns.
Look, I don't think it's going to happen, but it'd be a lovely fairy tale, wouldn't it? That's a big hole for Queensland. A couple of years ago, we had hookers coming from everywhere. At the moment, there's not as many. So New South Wales are rubbing their hands together. They've got plenty.
Yeah.
All right, that's our NRL segment for this week. And Greggy, what I thought we'd do this week, or what we thought we'd do this week, is have a really good look at a real legend of Australian cricket. Allan Robert Border, and I guess as young kids we grew up as he was one of the heroes in this club here. If you look around, you'll probably see a few pictures of him.
There definitely is. Yeah, great player. Nuggety little player. I don't know if you ever heard about Michael Hussey. Michael Hussey was born a right-hand. Well, he was born once he started playing cricket at the age of 5, 6, 7. He's a right-hander. He changed himself to a left-hander because of his love of Allan Border.
Yeah, right.
So he was actually naturally a right-hand player, but changed because of Border. So he has an influence on a bloke that went on to play 60-odd Test matches like Michael Hussey. That sort of showed what he did for the country. He brought the country out of the doldrums. He was tough as nails. The 87 World Cup, that's still the most underrated effort, I think, by any team. Australia go over, they beat England in the final in India in 1987. That was the great grumpy Allan Border at his best to lead that side.
Well, let's go back a bit for, especially I guess the younger people who are watching or listening to us. He only really got his chance because of World Series cricket, which basically divided the loyalists to Australian cricket and the rebels to the World Series cricket. Yeah. So he started off, even though he became a Queensland legend, he started with New South Wales, and there were gaps there to play state cricket because of that. Those guys couldn't come back and play Sheffield Shield cricket.
And Peter Toohey got a chance, I think, as
those
well.
Those guys, yeah. And he got brought into that Australian side under the tutelage of Bob Simpson.
And Graham Yallop and
all those guys. Yeah. And he was one of the guys who went well, because those teams actually got a bit of a pasting back in those days.
Did.
But he made it through that period of time and ended up, when the war was over, he played with the Chappells and the Lilies and the Marshes. And
Cole Chisel's been thrown in twice tonight when the war is over.
True, yeah.
3-day growth, I heard the Guru before.
The show's not over yet. So he made it into that with the likes of Kim Hughes and Rodney Hogg. He made it into that mainstream Australian side. And that was his humble beginnings, I guess.
We could speak for 2 hours about Allan Border. The one thing I'll never forget is back in the 80s, they interviewed players, and you got your cricket magazine or whatever it happened to be, and Jeff Dujon was asked what was his most disappointing moment in Test cricket. And it was not seen. Allan Border got 100 in the first innings and 98 in the second innings of a game against West Indies. And Jeff Dujon said that was his most disappointing moment in Test cricket. It shows you, as an opposition player, the respect that Allan Border had gained throughout the cricket family.
Well, you talk about that game. I think he was batting with Terry Alderman.
Yeah, Terry Alderman. Rodney Hogg might have been the first, and the Terry Alderman the second dig,
But he inherited that poison chalice, the captaincy of Australia, off Kim Hughes. And I used to love watching Kim Hughes before he had all that pressure, actually. But in those days, I guess, Greg Chappell had the captaincy at home. When they went overseas, Kim Hughes inherited it and so forth. When Kim Hughes finally was just a defeated figure, he took it over and he didn't really want it, apparently. He said, look, you're doing okay. I'm not going that great as well. And for the next few years, the team floundered, and it wasn't helped by the Rebel Tour. So he lost probably half of his team that went over and played in the Rebel Tour, and his job got even harder.
Yeah. And the Rebel Tour was huge. I don't know if you remember when he pointed at Craig McDermott too at fine leg there. He put his mark on the team. He used to go and drink with the opposition after games. In 89 tour, Ian Botham and David Gower waiting for their drink with their great mate, who's a great mate of theirs. And he said, no, we're here to win the Ashes. And they went, what, with your team? And they went on to win it 4-1. I think they won the 89 Ashes, is that correct?
They didn't lose a game.
Was it 4-0?
I think a couple of games were washed out.
Yeah, 4-0.
So you mentioned that game, the World Cup in India.
Yeah.
Another defining moment was over in India as well, with the tied test. And that was when Dean Jones, I think, got a couple of 100 runs. And that was that period of time. A lot of them have said it. Bob Simpson, Dean Jones, and Allan Border have said that was when we just discovered or decided as a team we're better than that. We're tough. And that was, I guess, the catalyst for the 89 tour. And from there, they never looked back.
Yeah, correct. Somebody like Shane Warne then came along and all that, and they said how much they loved having Allan Border as captain and
Steve Wars
and all that. Well, the only unfortunate thing for Allan Border was he just missed out on that victory over the West Indies. Because I think Mark Taylor was, by then, Taylor was captain when they won in the West Indies and won back that trophy for the first time in 15, 16 years. So it was a shame that Border wasn't there then, but he knew his time was up.
He ended up at over 11,000 runs, average of 50, and you've got to remember at that time too, he was a sort of almost a one-man show, wasn't he?
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot around him.
And what else was he? He was unplayable, the SCG.
Yeah,
7 for 1. I think he might have got 7 and 4. He might have got 11 in a test match.
I think he got 2 10-footers, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so he got 7 in one innings and 4 in the second innings, and he got 11 in the test match, I'm pretty sure, against West Indies.
he was. Where do you rate him?
Toughness, number one. Ability, this is probably giving him a rap. Ability probably wasn't in the top 10. But because of his toughness and because of his grittiness, he ended up being top 5 batsman that we've produced.
Absolutely.
But he'd have to be top 5 batsman. He played against the greatest West Indian side of all time.
And always got runs.
Yeah. What about you? Would you rate him there?
Oh, absolutely. He was the face of cricket in the 80s and 90s and just a tough guy. And you're right.
Pretty good baseball player too, though.
Played for Australia in baseball, all his juniors, That's our cricketer, our legendary cricketer this week. We're looking at Allan Border. All right, and that's Too Good Sports for this week.
Yeah, episode 8 out of the way.
We're rolling through them, Greggy.
We're only a month away from the World Cup cricket, and I think we've put out our greatest World Cup side. We put that out over the last week or so, or if it's not out, it'll be out soon. Love to see what you think out there, your greatest World Cup cricket side. We're getting closer to that, so that's going to get really interesting with that coming forward. And, of course, State of Origin's coming up from rugby league perspective. And there's other sports all over the world. The cheese rolling's, it's got to be next week.
Yeah. Look, thank you again for joining us on Too Good Sports. We've really appreciated all of your support, as I said last week, your feedbacks. We're growing in stature with our with all of our followings, and it's really thanks to you guys.
We'll get to send out our first pack, hopefully, of our supporter pack to the Guru out there. How good was it to have Eric Grothe on tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again to Eric Grothe for joining us tonight. But until we see you next week, may the bounce of the ball go your way.
Kick to the corner.